Problem 10, find the inverse. Since this is a 2 by 2, you have this formula. If I give you a matrix A, B, C, D, we can find the inverse by saying 1 over AD minus BC equals D. There's a D and an A, those two switch, and then these two just exchange or change to the opposite. It looks a lot more complicated than it is. Actually, if you just concentrate on the diagonals, the A and the D do something together, and the B and the C do something together, you can memorize that formula pretty quickly. So if I want to find the inverse by hand, I'm going to look at the diagonal product here. I'm going to say 1 over negative 12, because that's the diagonal product, and then I'm going to subtract the other diagonal product, negative 1 times 8, negative 8. So that's how I kind of start. And then I just interchange the negative 4 and the 3, and the other diagonal numbers, I change the sign, so it's positive 1 and this is negative 8. Okay? So I can simplify this fraction, that's going to be negative 1/4. But the negative 1/4 is going to be multiplied times each of those things. And so negative 1/4 times 3 gives me negative 3/4. Negative 1/4 times 1 gives me negative 1/4. Negative 1/4 times negative 8 is positive 2. And negative 1/4 times negative 4 is positive 1. There's your inverse. Okay? There's your inverse. And that's how you do it by hand. If you were able to do it by calculator, you'd go, and I like this matrix calculator, matrixcalc.org. Let's go up here, matrix calculator. So we're at matrixcalc.org, and it was a 2 by 2. It was negative 4, negative 1, 8, and 3. And you see one of these buttons here says find an inverse. And there it is right there, negative 3/4, negative 1/4, 2, and 1. So it's really easy on a calculator or on a computer, and it's not too hard to do it by hand either. So solve AX equals B using the inverse. So basically using the inverse to solve an equation. And so what I find is people don't really understand what this is. Don't think about algebra because you're not thinking about matrices. If you think about a system of equations, let's say I have x plus 2y equals 4 and 3x minus 5y equals 8. So I just made that up. But I could write that as a matrix using the coefficients on the left side. 1, 2, 3, negative 5 are the coefficients. The variables are x and y. And over here on the right side, that's your b. That's 4 and 8. I've changed that into a matrix equation. AX equals b. So when you see the capital letters, that indicates that we're talking about matrices. And we're talking about solving a system of equations or whatever. So I just made up those numbers. Those numbers aren't, that's not really important there. Okay? But what is important is when we are solving a matrix equation, what we want to do, what we're inclined to do is try to divide both sides by a so we can isolate x like we did in Algebra 1. But unfortunately, division is not defined for matrices, and we're not allowed to do that. You can't even divide with matrices. What we can do is multiply both sides by the inverse. We multiply both sides of our equation by the inverse, and you got to be careful because if you multiply on the wrong side, it's not going to work out because the dimensions of the matrices, you got a 2 by 2 and you got a 2 by 1. You can only multiply those in this order. If you try and multiply them out of order, it won't work. But anyway, I multiply both sides by the inverse. This cancels out. I get x equals this times this. And so I'm multiplying. At the end of the day, all those words I just said, all you're doing is multiplying these two matrices. That's it. And so if you want to do it by hand, remember to do your rows by columns. Rows by columns. I can see that I've got a 2 by 2 times a 2 by 1. So I know my answer is going to be a 2 by 1. Let's do it on the calculator. So we have, what's that? Negative 9, negative 1, 8, and 1. And then over here, I've got a 2 and a negative 16.
Now, notice, if I put them in the wrong way, if I want to multiply a times b, I can hit this button, or I can go down here. It doesn't matter. Let's say if I try to do a times b, I get an error. Of course I do, because they're the wrong dimensions. You can't do a 2 by 1 times a 2 by 2. That doesn't work. So let's do a 2 by 2 times a 2 by 1. I can multiply them that way. And that gives me my answer. My 2 by 1 answer is -2, or -2, 0. -2, 0. So -2, 0, which of course means that x is -2 and y is 0, but with capital letters. The capital letter is your variable matrix. That's it.